First off, before beginning this video, pardon my voice, because I am a little bit under the weather. I've been battling a cold for the last few days, so don't expect me to get really elevated about this. But considering that gaming content is about to become kind of different thing here on the channel, and seeing that I don't like to get into very much topical discussions on the channel unless I fucking care about it, which in this case I do, but in halfways I kinda don't. See, what we're witnessing here is the fall of modern gaming. We're blaming it on the closure of 4 studios, combined with others through previous years. But the 4 that are most recently brought up are Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, makers of Hi-Fi Rush, and 2 mobile game studios. Most gamers don't care about mobile game studios, but for those that want the specific names, they're known as Arrowhead and Roundhouse. Arrowhead made Mighty Doom, that released last year under Microsoft's banner. Roundhouse hasn't released a game yet, but is now going to be folded into the Elder Scrolls Online staff. So they don't really lose their jobs here. But it's more consolidation on the video market space that has seen close to 200,000 jobs lost in the last 2 years of space. Sure, losing employees should never be a thing we should sit here and just praise outright or totally ignore. But the loss of these infrastructures comes at a combined cost. 2020 saw the COVID pandemic implode everything. The movie industry still hasn't recovered. Wrestling is the only industry that really survived and thrived during the COVID pandemic, while everything else has basically been dying a slow, painful death. TV, no longer viable. Writers can't find jobs. Even people that do the lights can't even find a sustainable job and are forced to work at DoorDash for a living just to pay between gigs. The video game budgets, mostly inherited by marketing budgets, have imploded so high that now the game sells 10 million copies. It can't even get half to the black. Let's be realistic. For a game to be considered a financial and profit success here in 2024, you would have to sell in the first 90 days, by the way. Nobody brings this up. You would have to sell physically, non digitally, in 90 days, 30 million copies to be registered, written, and dignified as a success. And with modern day inflation, my guess is more close to 45 million. And you have to do this within the first 90 days. Because after those 90 days, sales aren't tracked anymore for games that don't fit the 90-day window. Because most companies years ago saw that 90 days is usually when a game's sales trail ends. Some basic video game economics. And seeing that most people and organizations that track video games still to this day have not yet found a viable and consistent way to track digital sales. This has pretty much been the death knell on how to track game success financially. That's why Xbox primarily has gone to more player counts. But even that has a trail too after about 90 days worth of time. Unless you're a game like Fallout 76, Power World, or, yes, even the even Sea of Thieves, getting new numbers to track as a new game that isn't a recurring, online only, constantly updating game, i.e., i.e., game as a service, or as I like to call them, just modern games in general, there's no way to track future success. This, compounded with in- inflation across the board in all forms, has led to a myriad of studio closures, shutdowns, the shrinkage of games. But that's the current situation. And given Xbox's position, a lot of people want to place the blame on the four studios on the studio heads. Which, yes, some accountability needs to go there, but only about 10 to 15% of it. Where does the rest of it go, though? To us. The title of this video, as you'll see on the bottom, is You Reap What You Sow. Why? Because we are, are reaping what we're sowing. This is the gamer's rapture. 20 years of neglect. 20 years of watching our industry become more and more corporate and making every excuse under the bar to say that it will be okay. Why? Because video games is going right. Right? When PS2 transcended to the PS3, 360, and Wii eras, that was the first of our negative decisions. Why would I say this? Based on this, PlayStation, in their hubris, decided to sell the PlayStation 3's original design at $600. Given inflation, that would be a nearly $950 console in today's money. But the gamers back then, the gamers of 2005, decided to outrightly say no, just like every console that had ever gone above even the $400 threshold, like the 3DO or the Neo Geo arcade home console, even more obscure things like the Laserdisc system. Through these rejections, we have artificially set a price wall on what console prices can be and should be. And every time that a company has even dared to challenge this $600 wall, even remotely, even for an accessory such as a PSVR 2, we have rejected it outright and told it to go kick rocks, collect dust on shelves. Thus, these big, multi-million-dollar investments die on the vine, as undemanded products should be, by the way. It's laissez-faire, economics 101. So, if anybody's going to counter this part of the video by saying that I'm encouraging people to buy overpriced video game equipment? No, I'm not. In fact, thank God we don't. But what gamers have become unaccountable for and unaware is the negative rubber band consequence. By you setting this wall, you have inadvertently, slowly brought upon console gaming's death. You didn't know it back in 2005 when you made the call, but you've seemingly done so. Now, as the next console generation is upon us in 2026, there will be no doubt that these consoles will be $650. The wall will once again be tested, and if inflation continues to remain or even heighten past the current space that it is right now, at about 14% by the by, these consoles will probably be the most expensive, not only in production, but the most expensive to buy in history, largely to probably be met with widespread rejection as PCs start to become more pre-equipped to even match or superiorly beat consoles outright. This creates a scary situation for the video game console and the video game industry as a whole, seeing that if families are moved the console circuit and by extension video games as a whole becomes a luxury item that only 2 or 3% of gamers can oddly afford, which leads us to rare game subscriptions like Game Pass. But even then, subscription services will be hit by inflation. All you have to do is look at services like HBO Max and Netflix to see their prices go up $1 or two every 90 to 120 days or so. But where did this all begin? Well, it began back then. We not only rejected the $600 price for consoles, but we were faced with many uphill battles. But it's in those minor battles that we chose to ignore as just a phase that video games is going through. That video games started to lose its way. Started started to go down this dark path of destruction. Remember online passes? Sure you don't. Because they were gone in about a year. Why? Because of widespread gamer unity, making online passes obsolete and a waste of time. But corporations then countered with the season pass that we stupidly, alongside loot boxes, thanks to modes like Ultimate Team, a mode that I will openly admit that not only did I play, but I have sunk over 200 hours in. But I mention this without spending a single dime of money in its microtransaction system. Because I, unlike the many hundreds of thousands of people, have monetary common sense, or are not hurt by sensitive triggers, or don't need mental health or gambling addiction problems, which sadly turns a mode that would otherwise be a fun collection mode based on memories upon memory lane and building historical teams into a psychological money pit of having to keep up with the Joneses, thus damaging social reputations, physical reputations, and monetary living arrangements, all in the effort of having that perfect 99 overall team. It's not the greatest thing. And there's no apologies for the psychological damage it caused. But the fact that we didn't get behind it collectively as a gamer collective to try to stop it, combined with Call of Duty's DLC season passes being worth $50 and universally agreeing to them, so much so that once they were removed, we've called the quality of the maps in Call of Duty worse and have thus asked for the season pass back. The very thing that was restricting matchmaking, making Call of Duty multiplayer, the most popular multiplayer at the time, a service of have and have nots. This combined with allowing battle passes in due to not Fortnite, although Fortnite perfected the formula. If you want the true starter of this disaster, blame PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds as the first purveyor of a paid battle pass for cosmetics. Fortnite just perfected the formula by simply doing one thing, giving you your currency back, thus feeding you into a psychological feedback loop of if I complete it, then it's essentially free, which is true, but it creates a handcuff of permanent, constant commitment, which thus increases player hours. It's another way to psychologically get you similar to the loot box, but without the randomness that comes from the loot box. It's the knowing what's at the end of the tunnel, while psychologically still homing you in with FOMO, but at least it keeps you playing because it encourages at least you have a goal. Using the goal-oriented notion of early video games as a source for financial gain. But gamers let that slide. And more, we have allowed gaming companies to slide on these things. And when these things happen, much like Sweet Baby Inc. or name your current problem of the day, we blame the companies. That's always our easy answer, our easy excuse. We're being manipulated for our money. These corporations have too much power. These corporations need to be stopped. All of it. True. But eventually, after 15 years and the slow ride, and corporations still not changing their ways and making more money than ever, it's time we gamers start doing the one thing we haven't done for the last 15 years in this industry. Last 15 years of this hobby. The last, I don't know, 15 years on this website. Take accountability. It is only when someone takes self accountability for the collective problems of our society, taking their small notes and realizing that without taking that self accountability, we can't begin to rebuild, that change doesn't happen. Change doesn't happen when a collective decides to wake up one day and decide that things need to change. It changes through the individual, through individual accountability, through making your friends accountable, for taking stock and taking a step back, for realizing and getting out of the window of social media and discussion the fact that all of this could have been prevented if gamers would have realized there's always a downside to the quote unquote positive thing, or that it was always a downside, and never just treating it as just a phase. These developers lost their jobs because, on one end, we want to play the sympathetic hero, saying that these corporations should have kept their jobs, while at the same time on X, telling them to go die in a hole, sending them death threats through letters, and bashing every developer, every screenshot, criticizing every trailer, downvoting every bit of work, when the proper answer, the proper thing to do, is to understand the weight of the work regardless of its quality and just have the heart to say thank you. Even if a game doesn't do well, even if a game doesn't suit you, even if a game does nothing for you, say thank you for the effort. These developers are sacrificing their time, their families, and it turns out to be now, due to the mistakes of our lack of accountability, their own futures to put quote unquote dinner on our plates. And we won't even say our grace. We won't even say thank you to the gods for providing us 300 games a year, when really all we should be getting is about 30 games a year. But yet, we want to ridicule, downplay, call them pathetic, and only when they lose their jobs do we earn a bit of compassion. No, the time for gamers to show compassion was way before any of this. But of course, we don't, because we're egotistical idiots that are put into our own heads, that are only about the next game being plopped on our plate without any relegation, to truly know how hard it is and just to say thank you. You don't have to like the work they put in. You don't have to like a Sweet Baby Inc. You don't have to like a single thing that's happening in our industry. But we have come off as an ungrateful, unthankful, unappreciative, an undeserving sort in this modern day video game industry. We don't deserve a service like Xbox Game Pass. We don't deserve PSN. We don't deserve the console cycle to even continue as normal. We deserve to be outpriced. We deserve to become the 2% of gamers that barely can afford this medium. We deserve the worst possible option. And why is that? Because for the last 20 years, we have failed to show any accountability on that front. We just ask these companies to give us something back. Well, they have been giving more games than we deserve, more services than we deserve, and keeping it cheap when even they know they shouldn't have. But yet, they continue to. We gamers deserve nothing. Why? Because we are acting unaccountable for nothing. And as long as gamers continue to act unaccountable, we get what we deserve. I want gaming to burn, not because of some phoenix rising from the ashes. I want gaming to burn so that gamers feel the pain of their lack of accountability. An industry can only survive if both sides know the cost of its loss. And one side, just clearly right now, doesn't. So, jobs will continue to be lost. But save your sob stories at the door. They're meaningless now. Because you decided not to fight for them from the start. And that's just my peace of mind.